need to make sure that your resume is written in a way that everyone can read it. Like, the thing to remember too, especially in like technical roles, is to really avoid that technical speak. What I find is people who tend to gravitate towards those technical roles will use a lot of acronyms and a lot of words that maybe general people don't know. But you need to think that in the hiring space, there's recruiters who could be reading your resume. They might not be technical experts. They need to be able to read it and understand it. The hiring manager might be like an HR leader, and then they do the initial screening and then decide who gets to stay and who gets interviewed by the technical leaders and who doesn't. So you need to make sure that your resume is written in a way that everyone can read it. And what I recommend, especially for those in like a technical role, is to just get like a family or friend who doesn't understand your job to read your resume and make sure that they can understand what you're trying to say. Because a lot of times we write it and we're like, oh yeah, this makes so much sense. And then someone else reads it and they're like, no, I have no idea what that says. So just making sure that it's written for everybody.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'll say that I am very fortunate to have a wife that knows nothing about the technical jargon and what I do. So I have somebody very convenient. And to test that, recently I asked her if she could tell if somebody what I did for work, and she generally described it really well. And when I reflect back, I was like, yeah, that's what I do in the most simplest
That's
form.
perfect. Yeah.
That's what I do. And and that kind of is a cool exercise that I recommend other people to do is if you have a spouse or a friend that is nowhere near the technical proficiency of what you do,
Hmm.
you could tell them what you do and then have them tell you back to you what you do. And that's kind of the core takeaways that somebody that isn't familiar with what you're doing is getting out of what you're
Hmm.
sharing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that
Especially, es-
yeah.
oh, sorry, especially in an interview, because sometimes there'll be more than one person, and maybe only one of the people is actually in the technical space. And so you need to be able to answer your questions in a way that the HR manager can understand, and also like whoever else is in the room, so that you're not just like going right over their head so they can't have an input at the end. So,
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that a lot of times people want to sound really proficient, but sometimes the greatest sign of proficiency is being able to explain something so well that anybody can understand it. And whenever you go
mhm,
straight to that jargon, it's kind of it it may actually show the opposite of what you're trying to come
right.
off as. Yeah.
Yeah, for
Wow.
sure.
Thank you so much for watching this segment of the Engineering Success Podcast. If you liked it, make sure to check out the other videos down below that are recommended to you. And if you really like the podcast, make sure to subscribe right down there in the middle. Really appreciate it. It's free to you and helps us a lot out. And last but not least, the best way to help the show grow is to comment down below. So leave your comment if you have any thoughts about this segment. Thanks.
I ain't chasing payments, still playing in the basement while I'm working on arrangements. They heard the kid in 50 countries, thank God that's amazing. But I'd rather thank Spotify, they put me on the station.